Let's welcome back Jay Zebert. She spoke to our group back in the summer. Last time she spoke about the nutrition and fibromyalgia and healing. And today I think she's going to cover blue zones, healthier and happier longevity. So that sounds
Okay,
interesting. So
good.
welcome back, Jay. Thank you for speaking to us again, and take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so happy to be here. I know I really enjoyed chatting with your group the last time I was here. We ended up having a really, extended conversation that lasted a lot longer than I was expecting. So one of the things I didn't get to cover that I wanted to cover last time is anti-inflammatory foods. And so the specific kinds of foods, they can have an impact, within just a couple of hours of ingesting them. So I'm going to talk about that after I give you a little intro to the blue zones. I am going to do a few slides. I'm going to keep the slides to a minimum because I don't like staring at slides either. It just helps to guide the conversation. For those of you who I haven't met, I think apart from Cheryl, I think maybe you all were here last time. I think so.
Cheryl's shaking her head, no.
Cheryl wasn't here. I know she was on vacation.
And Dorothy was here last time. Hi, Dorothy.
Yeah, hi, Dorothy.
Yes.
I remember Dorothy because we bonded. I have two family members with the name Dorothy, so that so just a little quick reminder about me. I am somebody who saved my own life with nutrition, and I did that before I became a professional. So I was about 35, almost 36. I went to the doctor because I had, we're all ladies here, so I'll go into the gorier version of the story. I had uncontrolled bleeding from my menses, and I thought it was literally bleeding to death. And I'd always had trouble my cycles, but I was really worried. I was worried. That's how much blood there was. And so I went to my doc, and they do the thing where they put you on the scale and they put a blood pressure cuff on you. And the doctor came over right away, and that's not a good sign. The doctor came over right away, took me directly into the room, took my blood pressure 2 more times, and said, "You have stroke level blood pressure." And I was 35 years old.
Wow.
The crazy thing is, I had been on a diet / working on my health / doing my best to eat healthfully since I was 11 years old. So almost a quarter century of working really, really hard on my health, right? And where was I? At 35 years old with stroke level blood pressure. It was bad. It was so bad that she would not let me leave. She was worried I was going to have a stroke right then and there.
Oh, wow.
She wouldn't let me leave until it came down, to give me some meds, and we waited. And I never got my blood issue resolved, because part of the issue was that my blood pressure was so high that it was contributing to the uncontrolled bleeding. So I was heartbroken and frustrated, because as I said, I'd been working like a quarter century working hard on being my healthiest self. Was I overweight? Absolutely I was. I was my highest weight ever. So if I'd been on a diet for 25 years, why was I at my highest weight ever? Yeah. I have lost hundreds of pounds previous to this last time. I had lost hundreds of pounds, get them all back plus more. And every time you do that, you make it harder on your body. Your body feels like it's constantly in crisis mode. So what I did was, first of all, I was like, okay, I'm going to stop listening to what everyone else tells me about the way I should be eating. And I'm going to go directly to the science for myself, which I did, which I'm surprised I didn't do sooner. It's more enjoyable to have somebody, give it to you in a soundbite. But honestly, going to the science directly for yourself, directly for myself, was the best thing I ever did, because it is nothing like what is recommended by most people. I mean, sure, eat your veggies. That one's good, but they don't stress how important that is. So I applied what I had learned for myself overnight, which I don't recommend to people. I recommend a gradual change if you're going to make changes, especially if you have underlying health conditions, which most of us do when we're seriously thinking about changing what we eat. But I wanted to continue to live. So I went cold turkey as much as I knew at the time. And so my doctor said, you're going to be on this blood pressure medication for the rest of your life. I'm very sensitive to medications. So she had me on 3 different medications. I passed out one time, had to call an ambulance. I mean, it was pretty brutal just getting to the point where I was properly medicated. So I'm going through this, and then I changed my diet overnight to this, what the science recommends, which is quite clear. There's some outliers, of course there always is, because there is some bias in medicine and science, but the commonality, the factors that repeated themselves, the studies, good science is that they show something to be evident, and then they show it again, and then they show it again, and then they show it again. That's what good science is. So I applied what I had learned, and within 4 days, 4 little days, I was like, okay, this is like nothing I have ever done before. After, dealing with all the medication issues and just feeling wretched, all of a sudden I was bouncing off the walls with energy. 4 days. Then 5 weeks after I had started, all of a sudden my GI issues that I'd had since I was a baby, my mother told me horror stories about what she had to deal with when I was a baby. So these terrible diarrheas was mostly what I dealt with. Excruciating pain, places I couldn't go. I couldn't be away from a bathroom for longer than an hour. Basically, that was my life for 35 years.
Wow.
After 5 weeks, that was just gone. It was just gone. And I was going to the bathroom normally. I wasn't eating, of course, the stuff that got me sick in the first place, but I was feeling amazing, and I wasn't in pain. My brain cleared, my skin cleared. I had terrible back knee. Fortunately, I've been pretty lucky in this region, but on my back I had, those huge boils. So my skin cleared, and my doctor told me, okay, you'll be on this medicine the rest of your life. Make your changes, eat right, exercise, blah, 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 but you're going to be on this medication the rest of your life. 5 months, I was off of that medication, and I am on no medications a dozen years later. So here I am a dozen years later, probably on time borrowed, like not time that I earned back, time that I got back because of the changes that I made. Even on medication, my blood pressure wasn't well managed, and it was making me sick. If anybody's on any kind of medications, there's always side effects.
Oh yeah.
Always. And I'm not against medication. I think medication is amazing. Science nerd here. I think it's really cool, the medical interventions that we have, but we have to take the good with the bad, right? And if we can, reduce our medication or wean ourselves off of some of these medications, then we're going to suffer less with those side effects. So, if my blood pressure didn't come all the way down, I'd still be taking it, and happily I would, because it was keeping me alive, and I appreciate that. But being off of it, yes, you know what I'm saying? It's a very good feeling.
I can relate. Yeah.
So I less than 6 months, and I'm like, what? Why does everyone not realize this? Why did I not hear this from anyone? With all of the diet information and gurus out there, that I was inhaling that information. It was my obsession, which I think a lot of people can relate with. Diet and weight loss is a huge obsession in this country and in Canada too. Why didn't I hear any of this? The truth is that this billions of dollar industry that is the fitness,
I was going to say, it's all for the money.
It's not about getting well. It is about setting up recurring customers, return customers. That's what it wants. So it wants you to have a little bit of success and then fall off the cliff and come back. They want that keep coming oh no, we're going to change the name of this just a little bit. We're going to give you this new idea, this new fad, and you're going to try that because you're going to think this is the one, this is it. And then you're going to be back in a few months or a year or however long it is. And you're going to be feeling worse than you did the last time you tried. And I think that's gross. Is it just me? It's really awful. I think it's awful. So I went back to school because like everybody needs to know this. And I've always been sort of a healthcare, tied to the healthcare field. I was an EMT many, many, many years ago. I have been in and out of the healthcare field most of my adult life because I love anatomy and physiology. I love diseases. I love everything about the way that this crazy complicated machine that we walk around in every day works. I just think it's amazing. I also want to know as much about what I've got to work with as I possibly can. So I went back to school, and I've been doing this ever since. So I started my career in public health because that's where I felt like I could do the most good. I was a health educator and a nutritionist. I did lifestyle medicine program. I'll explain what that is in a minute if you've never heard of it. Lifestyle medicine programs. So people come in we did a year-long pilot that was absolutely amazing. We had 6 different groups over the course of a year, 8 weeks long. People came in, and our 3 targets were obesity, diabetes, and blood pressure. So blood sugar and blood pressure. Those were our big 3. So it's basically heart disease, diabetes, and obesity, which are basically our top 3 problems. Heart disease kills more people than anybody by a long distance in terms of our stats. So I find it really, really interesting that, heart disease is our number 1 killer. Yet the screening and stuff like that is, fewer than others that harm us less. So we do need this little bit of shift in healthcare, which is why I started working in hospitals and did things like help them to change the food that they offer in the cafeteria. You should see the doctor's lounge and the kind of stuff that they eat in there, and the nurse's station for that matter. I've done internships where I rotate through lots of different departments in the hospital, and that was an eye-opening experience, let me tell you. Cardiovascular, heart disease patients after surgery being fed cheeseburgers.
What?
Yeah, people with diabetes being fed pancakes with sugar-free syrup. Like, we're really missing the mark here. There's a real disconnect between our healthcare and our wellness. I mean, there's a huge disconnect there. And to be fair, I mean, in the United States, we have some of the best technology, which means the doctors have to learn a lot. There's a lot they have to learn. This is not the same education as 100 years ago.
No.
It is a lot that they have to learn, and they have to focus it. So their focus is disease management, not wellness.
Yeah.
So, we got to give them a little bit of break, and we have to do and be our own best advocates. So I went back to school, and then I started doing public health and teaching, and I absolutely loved that. I still offer a free group like you all have here every other week. I've been doing that for years and years and years. I still do that. I still keep my rate really, really low because I don't think that your finances should get in the way of good health. And so today I want to talk about some of the cooler science. So what's the problem with science? It's either too complicated or it's boring. So the cool thing is when you have a beautiful story that you can tell. And so I want to share with you the blue zones. The blue zones, anybody heard of the blue zones? Blue zones.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So National Geographic and Dan Buettner did this study because there were these really anomalous areas in the world, these 5 in the beginning, where people were living to 100 and walking up mountains and still working. And I mean, they were living not just long, but really well, like vital lives, still really, almost no disability and like just really happy, healthy, vibrant human beings well past 80, which is not something that we experience in this country so much. So the people that do experience that are either genetically gifted or they work really hard at their health and have the good information, which is in limited supply. So I'm going to share a couple of slides. Like I said, I'll keep them short. I won't bore you to tears with the slides, but I think they do help guide the conversation. One thing I will say, if you don't remember from last time, I don't mind interruptions. If you've got a thought or a question, if I've got the slides up, then just go up or give me some indication that you have something you want to share, or click the little hand up. Okay, so these are the tenets of the Blue Zones. They basically have 9 principles. Really, really, really quickly, it's one of the most important things that they learned in this study, National Geographic and Dan Buettner, is that the most important thing is not nutrition, it's second. The most important thing is good social connections. That is the most important thing for your health. So your group here, 2 gold stars, because you're already doing that. You're already staying connected with other like-minded people who are focused on being as well as possible. So this is me a long time ago. Very, very inflamed. Look how red those cheeks are. Oof. Gray undertone, red cheeks. That was my life. And that woman right there is got, smiling for all she's worth. But what do you see in her eyes? She is tired. She is in pain.
I was going to say tired look. Yeah.
She is happy, yes, but is she at her best? Is she feeling vital and vibrant? No. That's my hubby right there. Isn't he cute? So this is our during, because there is no after. You'll notice my hubby adopted it too. Took him a couple months to get on board because it's pretty dramatic, the changes that we made. But he saw me getting off, having my medications lowered, how much better I was feeling and how annoying I was with all my energy. And he was like, maybe I could try that. Anyway, so we are a lot less inflamed. Notice the red cheeks are gone. The gray under pallor is gone. And the smile is a lot more easy. It's an easy smile where it was a bit of a strained situation before. So these Blue Zones, 5 areas of the world. There's a TED Talk if you're interested. I can send that link to Cindy, and she can send that off to y'all when I send over the video. I am recording this all, by the way. Hopefully you all got your little notice. These were the 5 Blue Zones originally in Greece. And so note, it's not the whole country. It's just an area in each of these countries. And note, one of those countries is in the United States, or one of those areas, Loma Linda. So Nicoya, Costa Rica, Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Icaria, Greece, and Loma Linda, California. I want to point this out really, really quickly. So this is a stat from a little while ago, but these stats don't get consolidated in a meaningful way for a while. It takes them a few years to do this. So this is still true. Our risks, so number of deaths based on risk factors. So smoking for many, many years in my youth was the number 1 risk factor. You smoked, and that was the number 1 reason that you got sick or passed away. That has been surpassed by what we eat. By a lot, by a significant amount. So what we eat has become the most important thing. Why? Not because smoking became less dangerous, but because our food became more dangerous. This is basically, this is a little pie chart that one of my favorite docs out there shares. This is a school lunch. This is a school lunch stat. So that is horrific to me. Notice this dark green space. That is the only space where we're eating anything remotely whole food. 6% of our diet. And these are kids. And that the adults are not doing any better. So these are just a lot of data. I'm not going to go into these. If you want the data, I've got links and stuff that you can read on your own, but you can start to change those markers that most of us in this country and in Canada are in the westernized world are struggling with. And it's very measurable. It's very measurable in chunks based on how many changes that you make. Cholesterol, blood pressure, weight are the three big ones. So I want to talk about this for just a second. And anybody that has a chronic illness will understand this subject better than somebody who does not. There is a difference between lifespan and health span. On average, in this country, we have about the last 14 years of our life, we have some sort of disability. So we are still here, but we are disabled, due to our health reasons. So what we want to do is extend the health span. We want to extend that. But extending the lifespan is great. That's fantastic. Technology can help with that. But extending the health span, that is more on us. Now we all have our own, things to work with. I'm 5'3". I'm never going to be 5'8", never. So we all have our, genetic components that we have to work with, but we have so much more power over our health than most people realize. A healthy diet, which is mostly whole food plants, physical fitness, moving your body every day. Doesn't mean you have to lift up heavy things and put them back down again. Just move your body every day. Natural movement is actually better, which is what the blue zones are all about. I'll tell you about that in a second. Don't smoke. Most of us have kicked that particular habit. Healthy body weight, that's a little bit trickier. Honestly, when I made my changes, I took that weight loss thing and I put it over there because I felt like I couldn't. I had spent almost a quarter century working really hard at it and ended up worse off than ever. Now, when I transitioned to my diet, I ended up losing 50 pounds within the first year without trying, and another 25 gradually over the years. So I wasn't focused on it, but as I got healthier, as I addressed, what my body needed to be its best, it was like, okay, well, we can release that now. But maintaining a healthy body weight, determining what that is, and maintaining a healthy body weight is the trickiest of all of them. And then the connection, stay connected. It's so important that it's on this list. All right, so let's talk about the Power 9 really, really quickly. I'm just gonna rattle them off and then go back to our big screen because I want to see your faces again. So the big things with these long-lived people is move naturally, have a garden. Instead of using your mix master, stir your mixtures, just like move your body more naturally. And if you found that you've been sitting for a minute, move. Those little Fitbits can be really, really helpful to remind you haven't moved for an hour, right? If you have mobility issues, there's lots of things on YouTube that can help in terms of finding ways to move your body that are safe for you. Belong. It's really about, having those social connections and having a support system behind you. Stay connected with your loved ones, those ones that are nourishing you, those ones that you have a wonderful reciprocal relationship with. Find your people. So you guys have this group here, and I think that's absolutely glorious. I have my groups that I absolutely love. When you find your people, those nourish your soul as well as your body and your mind. Have a purpose. Now, a purpose doesn't mean, you're going out to change the world. That's not what that means. What it means is something that gives meaning to life. It literally could be your cat. It could be your grandchildren. It could be your garden. It could be somewhere you volunteer. Have something that's meaningful in your life. It could be education. It could just be learning. There are things that you can do by yourself that are meaningful as well. Downshifting. So every day, right about 4 or 5 o'clock, these areas of the world they move into chill and chat mode. Chill and chat mode. It's really one of the things they do is wine at 5. Now, the latest evidence on alcohol is that none is safe. It's a carcinogenic, which means it causes cancer, among other things. But these areas of the world, they all have, half a glass of wine and chit chat. There is something about that collective, have a cup of tea instead. There's something about that collective that really is nourishing, not just to your soul, but to your body as well. 80% rule, that's really about mostly eating to 80% full. And for those of us that have disordered eating, this girl right here, that can be a little bit tricky. It's just something that you practice, just practice. Slow down your eating and practice leaving some on your dish or in your plate, on your plate. Just practice leaving it there and not eating it. That can be a very easy way to help to curb, that overeating situation. And also recognize what you're hungry for. If you find that, you've eaten and you're still hungry and your tummy is full, you can literally feel it's full, but you still feel hungry. What are you hungry for? Are you hungry for connection? Are you hungry for joy? Are you hungry for peace? Are you hungry for an outlet? Find the source of that emptiness that needs to be filled, and do things that make you happy. Connect with people that make you happy, and see if you can fill up that space. Ask yourself what you're actually hungry for, and drink some water, because that could be a problem too. It could be that you're dehydrated. And the last one is plant slant. And so I'm not here to tell you have to be vegans or vegetarians. I never, ever, ever do that. But I am telling you is that we have requirements. Our body has requirements. There are things that your body needs. One of the fads out there right now, and it's a small one, but it's dangerous, is things like the keto diet or the carnivore diet, which are not the same thing, but have very, very similar detriments. Tell me something. When, hundreds of years ago, when people would go off to sea, sailors would go off, be in a boat for months, years at a time. What was one of the biggest issues they had with health?
Scurvy.
Why is that?
Yeah. Lack of vitamin C.
They had no fresh fruits or vegetables.
Right.
How important fresh fruits and vegetables are. If you do not have them in your diet, you are lacking in serious nutrition. The kind of basic nutrition that doctors do get, because that can make you very, very sick. Most doctors don't get educated in nutrition, but they do in things like scurvy, because that's something that you can fix easily by increasing your fruits and vegetables. Most of us get a fraction of the fiber recommended, the recommended amount of fiber, which is not high enough based on the evidence. So let's say on average, it's based on gender and age and things. So let's say on average, we need about 25, 28 grams of fiber a day. It's more like double that. But let's say people are getting a fraction of that. They're getting less than half of that across the board. So what does that cause? What kinds of problems does that cause? You remember me chatting with you last time, I know that was a few months ago now, we were talking about gut health. And what do your little microbes need in order to flourish, in order to be healthy, in order to feed the good ones and starve the bad ones? What's the number one component?
Fiber.
Exactly, fiber-filled foods. And unfortunately, Metamucil and things like that, your gut doesn't know what that is. You have to actually eat the plants. You have to eat the plants. And what that does is it feeds the good microbiome. I'm not going to get into that because we could spend the rest of the time talking about it. But that is 70% of your immune system. That is your mental well-being. That is your hormone levels. It impacts a lot of stuff. So we want to keep that microbiome healthy. How do we do that? We feed it the fiber-filled foods. Those are called prebiotics because that's what they feed the pros. What else? 70% of us, about 3/4 of people in America have digestive issues. You think if we were getting proper fiber, that number might go down a little bit? It would. It would. So people can have diarrhea, constipation, or both. You know, you can have them at the same time. Isn't that fun? What is one of the biggest things that you can do? Heal your gut, you know, feed those good microbes, starve the bad ones, heal the actual lining of the gut. One of the best things you can do for that is eat your dark leafy greens and feed those good microbes, which actually are the ones, those microbes, not our bodies, the microbes. We live in symbiosis with those little buddies that we have down there. They actually create that most important of mucus lining in our gut. So we need that protective lining so things do not get into our bloodstream. Things do not damage that lining, so things can't get into our bloodstream that should not be there. So the microbes create the mucus layer that help to protect that barrier that we need. Think about what's traveling through your digestive system. We want that swimming through our blood? Not so much. We want the stuff that we want out of it, the nutrients, the good stuff. We want the waste to end up in the porcelain throat, not in our bloodstream. So we got to make sure to keep not just the tissues of our gut healthy, eat those greens, but also the microbes that help us to digest our food. So they are literally helping us to digest our food, which is why when some people start to transition and eat a little bit more fiber, sometimes they get a little gas and feel a little uncomfy because you need to train and build up those healthy colonies in order to digest the food and then have those chemicals released that do the healing. So if we want to be vital, if we want to heal, if we want our bodies to function the way that they were designed, we need to feed. This is what eating is about. I mean, I'm all for the pleasure. I made chocolate chip cookies, healthful chocolate chip cookies, but I made chocolate chip cookies for my cooking class on Monday. I love the pleasure component of food, and I think that is missing in a lot of people's recommendations when it comes to health. If it's not fun, that's that much harder to stick to. The reason we ingest things, the reason we have to, is because our body has needs. It needs things. It needs things that it can't create on its own out of the air. So we have to give it what it needs. If we want it to function, we have to give it what it needs. If we want it to heal, we have to give it what it needs. And the less damage we do with the things we ingest, I'm not saying be perfect. I'm expecting that some of the things you eat are going to do damage. I'm not expecting perfection. What I am saying is we get out of balance and put more good stuff in, keep that bad stuff down to a minimum. The more we do that, the more our body can handle it. You know, if you do want to have that sip of wine, careful. If you do want to have that sip of wine, recognize that your body needs things in order to heal from that. If you do want to have whatever it is, whatever kind of food or non-food, food-like substance that you consume, recognize that your body needs reinforcements to manage that, to deal with it, to heal from it. There's no such thing as a neutral food. It's either helping or it's harming. Some things are kind of close to the line. Cucumber, it's a little closer to the line than, let's say, Brussels sprouts, but there's no neutral food. It's either helping or it's harming. And so we just want to really give our bodies, prioritize giving our bodies what they need. All right, I just unloaded a whole bunch of info on you. I have more to talk about, but I'd love to know if you have any questions or thoughts before we move on.
How come cucumbers aren't healthy?
The cucumbers are absolutely healthy. They're
Okay. It was the way you said it that I thought you were saying they weren't unhealthy.
So everything is on a spectrum, right? Everything. Right. Let's see. Potatoes are perfectly healthful, absolutely right. Gorgeously healthful, depending on how you eat them. But if we're looking at the spectrum, white potatoes, fine, great, got good stuff in it, lots of fiber, a lot more things in it than you'd think. Eat the skin, always eat the skin if you can. But a sweet potato, that is like next level better for you. A purple potato. We don't have to eat them. I'm just demonstrating.
Right. No.
So potatoes are perfectly fine for you, but what can you make out of potatoes, right?
Right.
and fries and vodka.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Right.
there's lots of stuff you can make with potatoes that are not healthful. So the potato thing. So there's, if you want to go one step further from sweet potatoes are fantastic. There are cultures that live on mostly sweet potatoes and they do great with their health. Do a purple potato. Woof. The more vibrant the color is, the more potent.
Sorry for interrupting. What was I doing yesterday? That I was, I think it was yesterday. We were talking about a purple potato and I said, what? There's such a thing as a purple potato? I never heard of it.
Mhm.
You know, I'd never seen it. And the people were like, oh yeah, it's coming into stores and everything. And yeah. So now here you are saying, eat a purple potato. It's really good for you.
So purple potatoes are a little bit sweeter and a little bit more.
Right.
So I would either boil them or roast them. Those would be my two recommendations if you're going to try them. They're gorgeous and the color is fantastic. Cindy, I see the little, you got something?
Yes, you
Right.
had a random question. I think I asked you this last time about colon cancer. Now, what is the main cause of it? Is it genetics or is it the type of food that a person eats, or is it a little bit of both?
Yes.
Or lack of
So-
exercise?
It absolutely is. Let me answer the question this way, because I'm not a doctor, and so that's a little bit outside my scope. But let me answer you by talking about lifestyle medicine doctors that I work with. So if you, after the age of 45-ish, you're supposed to do the colon, right? If somebody has been on a predominantly, so it doesn't have to be 100%, 90 to 95% is actually ideal. 100% isn't ideal. Why isn't 100% ideal? Because you're moving into the area of obsession, and that's not helpful either. You want balance, you want health, not obsession. So
yeah,
90
that's the trick, a good balance. Yeah.
is key. So a lifestyle medicine doctor will find your history, and if you eat predominantly plants and have been doing so for more than 5 years, they will most likely give you either a smear test or Cologuard, which means no tube up the backside. So it's a less invasive test because there's such a reduced rate of colon cancer for people that eat a high fiber diet. Now, there are other factors. There's absolutely other factors. I mean, what else? Your environment, what else are you taking in? Medications, alcohol consumption, other risky behaviors. All those are a factor, and genetics, absolutely. Eating more vegetables, right? You're not going to live forever. You're not going to have perfect health. You still have this human body to deal with, right? And we still have environmental factors. But the way that I look at it is I am stacking the deck in my favor. I am stacking the deck in my favor so that when I go out into the world and I'm exposed to whatever I'm exposed to, I haven't been sick in years. Literally. Not a cold. I've never had COVID. I'm not saying that that's why. I'm not saying that, go plant-based and you'll never get COVID. But I am saying that this is a sad story, so I'm going to share it really, really quickly so I don't cry. My family, my aunts and a cousin of mine, they're all medical foster parents, which means they take in little ones that their parents can't handle them because they're medically so complicated. And there was RSV was pretty rampant there for a second. And they had this little one, and she got RSV and she didn't make it. And I went there obviously to help, and everybody in the house got RSV and I did not. Everybody got it. So understand that I'm not saying I'm a superhuman either, because I can still get sick. Somebody coughs in my face, I'll probably get a little sniffle. That's probably going to happen. But understand that a lot of your immune system lies in that healthy microbiome. What makes a healthy microbiome? It's the balance. What is one of the best ways to fight off a cancer? I mean, I'm absolutely advocate for medicine, right? 100% I am. But what is one of the biggest things that can help you to prevent or help to heal cancer? A strong immune system. this is what we want. This is what we want to work on. And, you know, the supplements out there don't do what they say that they do. Remember that if you're trying to rely on supplements, that it is an unregulated industry. They're unregulated medicine. It is medicine run wild. That's what supplements are. Now, I take B12, right? Because animals are injected with B12. And so people that eat animals, I do not. People that eat animals are getting B12. I am not, because our fruits and vegetables are so sterilized. We used to get B12 from the soil and from drinking out of the stream. It's been a really long time since I drank out of a stream. So I do take my B12. I'm not saying supplements are bad. I'm just saying if you're trying to get healthy using supplements, that is, you know, like riding on a stationary bike. You might get a little bit of benefit, but you'd be much better off to take that bike outdoors. And they have side effects just like any other kind of medicine. They can. And if you take too much, you can actually end up doing the opposite of what you intended. So just be real careful with those supplements. So there's a lot of things like colon cancer and things that are dramatically lower in somebody that gets enough nourishing food in their diet. And what that looks like is a wide variety of whole plant-based foods. 100% no. Remember, I didn't say 100%, just said most of what you eat. And watch out for those fads. Protein is a fad right now. You do not need, I don't care how much you lift, I don't care how much you weigh, you don't need more than 100 grams of protein a day. That's wild and unhealthy. Remember, just because some is good does not mean more is better. So if you're looking to figure out how much protein that you should be getting on a daily basis, the scientific consensus, the studies that have been done and shown to demonstrate the evidence over and over and over again is 0.8 per kilogram, which is 2.2 pounds. So that's a healthy weight. So if you have, some excess weight on your body, subtract that, your healthy weight times in that 0.8 region. I do want to talk about anti-inflammatory foods specifically for a moment, but any other questions or thoughts?
Yeah, as a nutritionist, I remember they used to have the food pyramid.
Right. They don't have that.
Is there still a recommendation?
Yeah, okay. We called it Canada's Food Guide. Yeah.
So if you actually look at Canada's guide, they did something really, really beautiful a couple years ago. Now all of the guides are plates instead. The Lifestyle Medicine group has a plate as well. It's called the Power Plate. I could show that to you, but Canada's plate is better than America's plate because they have removed the industry funded recommendations. And so it's not 100% plant-based, but milk has been taken off. All dairy products have been taken off.
Yeah, because people have so many allergies now to milk. Like I know my sister, she wasn't lactose intolerant when she was a child, but she is now.
You know why that is?
Why?
What is milk?
It's a plant material. I mean, an animal material.
Milk is breast milk for babies.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And so we, when we are, up to 18 months, 2 years, maybe some people breastfeed longer, whatever. Breast milk is really cool. It gives us everything that we need as babies, as we're, doubling in size, as we're growing our brains. Yeah. I mean, fantastic for us from our species though. So breast milk is vital those first couple of years, but.
Well, no, some people say it isn't that. It's that mother's breast milk is fine, but because it's animal breast milk, that's why, it's from an animal. That's why so many people are coming lactose intolerant, because it isn't your own milk. It comes from a secondary source.
So the reason is it's not our species. So it's not the correct formulation for
right.
us. Also, most of us know the genetics vary for a variety of reasons.
Right.
There's a really horrible reason, and I'm going to share it with you, but just emotionally prepare yourself. What is one of the things in an underdeveloped country, especially, we lose babies to? What is one of the number one things we lose babies to?
Malnutrition.
Malnutrition,
Diarrhea.
diarrhea, that's right,
That's
that's
a
right,
big one. Diarrhea is a big one.
that's right, that's
Absolutely.
right.
So what happens when you cannot handle something that you're given?
You get diarrhea,
As a baby, you might not survive it. So
right,
in the areas where they drank a lot of milk as babies, animal milk, they have more tolerance. So people that
Oh.
like me, that are more fair in complexion, have a higher tolerance for that because we grew up drinking it and we survived drinking it. So
okay, that doesn't make sense with my sister, but anyway.
I'm going to explain why that happened to your sister in just a minute. But in places
Okay,
where your skin color doesn't look like this, the lactose intolerance rate is over 90% in some Asian countries. In the African American community, it's like 75-80%, I think, lactose intolerance rate. And in the white community, it's lower, but that's just because of that evolutionary bump we got, which is not a good thing. That's not a good. I'm glad we survived. Yay, surviving.
right,
But also, it has made us dependent on a cow's breast milk, which is
right.
weird when you really think about it.
Mhm.
Also harmful. So what happens? Mammals, for the most part, breastfeed, right? It's kind
Right.
of being a mammal, but not their whole life. No mammals breastfeed their whole life. If you leave mammal families together, sometimes they will continue to breastfeed, but that's their own mother's milk, right? That's designed for their bodies.
Right,
But humans, they tend to lose the ability to digest lactose after about 18 months, because you're supposed to be weaned onto solid food. You need
right,
solid food eventually
right,
to survive. And so those of us, the majority of us that actually lose that enzyme that helps us to digest milk, when we drink the milk, whoop, and it doesn't do good things on the way out either. So
gotcha.
yeah, so we're not designed for cow's breast milk, and we are designed to be weaned onto solid food after our infancy. And so that's why people are allergic to milk. They're not really allergic to milk. They're just supposed to be on solid food now. They're supposed to be weaned off of the breast and
Okay, gotcha,
the solids.
gotcha.
Yeah. And it has more impact on some people than others because of that evolutionary component that I was talking about. Also, it also depends what else you're eating. So some people will say to me, Jay, I absolutely 100% want to do this. I just can't give up cheese. So I say, then don't. Do your best. But if you've got to have the cheese, recognize what it's going to do to your body. Be prepared for that. And, do your best to give your body what it needs in order to heal from that. So speaking of inflammatory foods, anti-inflammatory foods, the number one most potent anti-inflammatory food is spice. It's the thing that we eat in the smallest quantity. So cinnamon, clove, saffron, turmeric. I love me some turmeric, pepper, nigella seeds, black cumin. Any of the spices are that category of quote unquote food is the most potent in terms of antioxidants and sometimes in terms of anti-inflammatories. Those two things tend to go very, very much hand in hand. When it comes to food, whole foods, fruit is your most potent source, berries especially. So anytime we were talking about the potatoes, right? Think about the darker, the more vibrant the color, reds, purples, and all those kind of gorgeous colors. Those are the most potent antioxidants. There are foods that are very calming to our system. Things like potatoes, Now, if you've been off potatoes for a long time and you have an issue with blood sugar, you have diabetes or some other issue with blood sugar or insulin, you're going to want to reintroduce those slowly, but they are really good for you, I promise. One of the most potent antioxidant, anti-inflammatories out there is ginger, fresh or ground. Ground is actually just a teensy bit more potent. When it comes to spices, the ground tends to be a little bit more potent, but eat the fresh and the ground. At the allium category, so any of your onions, garlic, all that kind of stuff, that stuff is really, really good to eat alongside. The most potent though is your spices, your berries, and your ginger. I exclude ginger because ginger is good fresh and dried, but turmeric fresh is a huge hassle and it's more potent when it's dry. What's the number one thing to do when you consume turmeric? Does anybody know?
No.
Must include with it if you want the most out of it.
Black pepper.
Yeah.
Yes, nicely done.
Yeah,
All right,
thanks.
so it increases its potency by an estimated 1000%. So don't leave out the pepper. Just need just a little pinch.
I didn't hear what you said. Black peppers makes what more potent?
Turmeric.
Oh, turmeric. Oh, okay.
Turmeric is one of the easiest and best things that you can do if you have any pain at all. It puts a dent in it. Doesn't cure it all, but it puts a dent in it almost immediately. Anybody that has come to me over the years and said, yeah, I feel like I eat healthy enough, or I don't want to make any changes, but I have this pain, I'm like, turmeric, just do the turmeric, and it does help. Very, very often people struggle because they're like, well, I ate a salad, but what else did you eat? So the problem is your overall pattern is what has the most impact. But when it comes to turmeric, it's so potent, it will cut through that. It'll cut through, a wretched diet and stuff a little bit it will.
I have
Any
a question.
particular amount?
Yes, so it's a very small amount, quarter teaspoon to a teaspoon a day is plenty. Oh, if you're taking a blood thinner, you just want to be a little bit careful with turmeric. That was your question. Okay.
That was, yeah.
That was
I was advised not to use it because
it can
it can
yeah.
mess. Yeah.
Um,
Which really bugs me.
It's a bummer. The dietary recommendations that are contraindicated with medication. What I mean by that is you're taking a medication, so you shouldn't eat these things, are very much a limit situation and not a zero-sum situation. But when it comes to blood thinners, depending on what your particular situation with is, you might be able to work with your doc and see if you can incorporate some and monitor your situation. But it's a little bit tricky. If your situation is serious, might not want to mess with that. So I would just switch to, saffron and eat your clove, put a little sprinkle of clove on your oats in the morning or whatever. Find a way to get in some potent antioxidants other ways.
What about cinnamon?
Cinnamon's fantastic. It's cinnamon is you have to consume more of it to get benefits, but it's a lot lighter than clove, for example, is very, just a quarter teaspoon is plenty. Cinnamon, if you have any sort of blood sugar control issues, diabetes, or I always say blood sugar control because it's not always diabetes, then cinnamon can help regulate that. It also is antioxidant, anti-inflammatory as well.
What
Isn't
about
there a certain type of cinnamon you're supposed to use?
Yes, so the better version of cinnamon is Ceylon, Ceylon, Ceylon is better version.
What about the cultured products? I know you spoke on milk, but what about the products that are cultured, like yogurt or cottage cheese, from cows?
So they're a little bit better, but it's just because of the culture, not because of the food. So if you want the benefits from yogurt, for example, then you do so much better to have almond yogurt or coconut yogurt instead of the dairy. Then we're trying to find that balance, and the less animal and the more plant, the better you're going to do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, what about the cottage cheese? Then you can't really replace that, right?
No, and cottage cheese is not, yeah, I would, again, when I'm talking with somebody who's like, oh my gosh, cottage cheese is my favorite thing in the whole wide universe. So continue to have your cottage cheese, just find, better versions of most of what else you're eating and that balance. It's not healthful. It's not helping you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yogurt was actually the nutrition science evolves over time. I mean, we know a lot more about the microbiome than we used to. Anybody who says they know everything, though, that is a huge red flag because we don't know everything yet. So huge red flag.
And sorry, in the words of Maya Angelou, I pity the fool that says they know everything.
Right, exactly. We used to, years ago, I was a little bit on the fence about yogurt based on the data. So there is, if you want the benefits that yogurt gives you, then have other things that contain probiotics, anything fermented, sauerkraut, some vinegars, certain kinds of like tempeh, there's so many pickles. Watch out for that sodium, but if it has live cultures in it, then you're getting probiotics. There's kefir that's not milk-based, that's actually plant-based. Yeah, there's lots of different ways to get in those gorgeous cultures without, the harmful vehicle. Great question.
What
Thank
about
you.
pineapple? And I've heard from some of the Indian cultures, they use bitter melon. They will cook up an egg and have bitter melon in it for, I guess, the fiber in it, but it's supposed to help anti-inflammatory arthritic-y kind of conditions. And bromelain is really good for bruising and lung issues.
Yes. So anything that contains bromelain, it's like pineapple, for example. Bitter melon, I'm not thoroughly versed in that, but I will talk about pineapple. So pineapple is one of the really fantastic things if you have any sort of indigestion issues. If you are consuming meat, it can help to break down proteins. It's got some gorgeous stuff in it to help to heal, but one of the best things it has in it is to help you digest your food well. Be careful though, because the fresh stuff can be pretty acidic on the way in. So
I'm allergic. I get bumps on my tongue.
oh, that's the worst. I love pineapple.
From the pine, I guess the acid or bromelain or whatever.
I get sores on it.
Me too.
Yeah.
One of the things to remember too when it comes to gut health is there's a misnomer out there that foods that are acidic going in are acidic in our body. When it comes to acidic foods, so there's this whole, and this fad, so there's always a fad. Right now, it continues to be protein and cortisol. So people are feeding off of this cortisol fear. You need some cortisol in your body. It's a very delicate situation. There's the stuff that's out there about cortisol, most of it is trash. I'm sorry, but it is, as most of it is trash. So there's always a fad that happens to be running at any given time. When I was in my formative years, it was 0-calorie sweeteners. That was a thing. And then it was fat-free. Everything is fat-free. And then they added more sugar. And then it was, it's always so, it was coconut oil. And then it was, MCT oils. And then it was this, and then it was that. There's always a fad. So if there's something that everybody's into in the moment, run. Do not walk away from that. Run. Because it's not good for you almost always. So, yeah.
I'm concerned about people. I don't know how many people are doing it, but the shots in the stomach for losing weight, once you start on that stuff, you got to stay on it. And as soon as you get off of it, you're going to go right back to where you were. So that's the biggest fad right now that
it is the Ozempic and yeah.
I know I need to lose, but there's no freaking way I'm going to inject myself. I'd rather learn how to eat properly, which I probably don't. But You know, to me, that's the biggest fad right now.
It's huge. It's huge right now, and people don't recognize that it's lifelong unless you want that weight back. And they don't also recognize that, and there are some people that should be on it. 100% they should, but they don't. People completely disregard or go la 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 when it comes to the side effects as well, which we don't know a heck of a lot about yet because it's still fairly fresh, but we will. There will be side effects and people going, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I didn't do that. Or they said, you know, it helped me with this, but oh my goodness, right? Yes. So am I anti Ozempic and things like that? Not always, but my favorite lifestyle medicine doc says one of the things you can do that's almost equivalent is just eat an apple 20 minutes before you eat. It's very similar. Yeah, seriously. There's a whole bunch of evidence around consuming some whole food plants 20 minutes before your meal that dramatically decreases how much you eat, not just the next meal, but the rest of the day. So good tip, excellent tip. You've heard of oat Zempic? You've heard of this? Oat Zempic? People are blending up oats and saying it has the same benefits as Ozempic. It doesn't, first of all, but what they're doing, again, is they're increasing their fiber. So they stay full longer, they don't have as many cravings, blah, 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 blah. So it can help, but it's not a miracle. Eat your oatmeal in the morning. You know, same thing. So fads are dangerous almost always. Thank you for bringing that Ozempic thing up. Any other thoughts or questions?
I had a question. What was the thing you said about acidic foods?
Oh, right. I was starting on a whole thought and then we went down a different path. I love it when conversations take jags because I find that the most beneficial info comes out of them. But yes, let me get back on my track here. So the alkaline diet, that's where I was going with the fats. So an alkaline diet is not inherently a bad idea, but people are very confused about what that actually means. So alkaline water, don't drink alkaline water. Don't consume baking soda or anything alkaline concentrated like that. If you have stomach issues and you're taking a lot of Tums or antacids, try and find a way to resolve that so you can reduce that. That's really harmful for your digestion. And it exacerbates the problem. The lower your stomach acid, the worse your GERD is going to be. So yeah, I know it's a problem. We have GERD in my family. I had terrible heartburn before I transitioned. So, and I always had the Costco sized Tums everywhere in my house. So I get it. But the cool thing about gut health is a lot of things can be healed. You know, a lot of these, your GI doc might say dysbiosis, and all that means is an imbalance in your gut. And a lot of these GI issues that people are suffering with, a lot of them can be healed with proper attention to healing your digestive tract and feeding the microbes. Not all of them, but a lot. And unfortunately, medications, while they can help temporarily, tend to mask the problem. And a lot of people think that if they're taking medication, let me give you an example. So I did a lot of health fairs in public health, and I would take blood pressures and then counsel people. And somebody would come up and have their blood pressure taken. And I would say, do you have high blood pressure before we took it? And they would say, no. And I would take their blood pressure and it would be high. And I would say, oh, you know, advice. Oh, they're like, oh, well, I'm on medication. Then you have high blood pressure. Just because it's controlled with medication doesn't mean you cured it. All you're doing is masking the symptom and you haven't addressed the root cause. Blood pressure medication can save lives. I'm not saying you shouldn't take your medication. I'm just saying once you take it, you're not cured. You're just controlled until you can deal with the underlying issue. Yeah, it's if we're on medication, some medications just need to be taken. That's it. They do, period. No but or and or anything after that. But people don't recognize how much power they have over that, and the quantity and the number of medications we can have reduced or eliminated based on what most of us are sick with in this country and in Canada too. You can make a significant change. There's actually a diagnosis that you get if you take more than 9 medications, which is very common in this country, especially after your middle years. It's a completely different thing because you're taking too many different medications, and that in itself, doesn't matter what they are, that's bad for you. So we can improve that. There are so many people, a high percentage of people. Some people do have to take medication. I am sensitive to my blood pressure, and at some point I might need to go on hypertensive medication, even if I'm doing all the right things, because my body is sensitive. So far, knock on wood, I'm in good shape, but I recognize that fact, but I want people to take as much of their power back as they can, which is why I don't stop talking. Any questions or thoughts about what I just said there?
So what's your tips on lowering your blood pressure besides eating healthy, and decreasing the salt or sodium?
So, okay. One of the programs that's out there that I used to teach is the DASH, Dietary Approaches to Stopping Hypertension. I'm telling this story because I'm about to tell you something pretty extreme, and I want you to understand why I'm saying it. So the Dietary Approaches to Stopping Hypertension was created by a plant-based doctor, but they modified it so heavily because it wasn't palatable. So like if you look at the DASH table, it's got candy and everything on it. It's got everything on it. So if you have hypertension, you've been diagnosed with high blood pressure, their recommendation is to keep it under about 1,300 milligrams of sodium a day. I'm going to tell you, if you do that and you still have problems controlling your blood pressure, and you're absolutely welcome to, thank you. If you do everything that you're told to do and you still have problems with high blood pressure, there is more that you can do if you're willing. The evidence that supports doing DASH is on average about 9 point something points on your blood pressure. So if you're like me and you had stroke level blood pressure, 9 points is not helpful at all, like not even a little bit. So if you really want to bring it down, like I said, 5 months and I was off my meds, there are some things you can do. Stay away from sodium in any form at all, period. Now we need some sodium in our diet. We need 250 milligrams, for functioning, but celery has sodium in it. Foods, sodium comes from the soil. So you're going to get some natural sodium. Now, so you're telling me, Jay, you're contradicting yourself. You just told me my food can be delicious and be healthy at the same time. The trick is learning to cook. And it's not that we don't know how to cook. I never liked to cook before I went plant-based because it is such a beautiful and creative process. Do I use some sodium products? Yes, but I use them strategically, and I use them to their best advantage. And I am a huge fan. You should see my spice drawer. I mean, it's a big drawer full of spices, and I have learned how to use them. I've also learned the shortcuts. So when it comes to, I have a cooking class that I do. It's called Kiss My Plants. Kiss My Plants. What is that? Keep it super simple. Keep it super simple. So the easier you can make your life, the better. So let me give you an example. On Monday, we made a sweet potato chili. And instead of cutting up onions and celery and carrots and doing all the things, all the steps, I just took low sodium salsa, dumped it in, and I didn't have to do any of that. I threw everything in a pot, turned it on, and moved on with my day. I put in pumpkin spice, which is a blend of several spices. Find a no salt seasoning that you love. Costco has a gorgeous one. Miss Dash, I think it's just called Dash now, has, I think, 21 different ones. So
Yeah,
but read those ingredients though. Some of them have funky ingredients in them, but there are really beautiful options out there so that you don't have to, so it doesn't have to be hard. It is a change though, and change is always challenging, even if you like it.
I think the problem is my husband and I travel a lot and we're eating out every night, sometimes twice a day at restaurants. So we don't know what people are cooking their food with. So it's like, I guess the traveling is nice, but the eating isn't probably the healthiest.
I get that. It's challenging. If you're eating in a restaurant, it's going to be high in sugar, salt, and oil, very likely. I mean, all three usually.
Yeah.
And a lot more than you would even if you were a high salt user, more than you would put on your own food. So there's a couple of ways around that. There are a couple of other kind of dramatic changes you could make to try and balance that out. First of all, think about what it is that you're consuming that is not in the restaurants. My favorite fast food is fruit. And when I am traveling, I make sure to have something with me at all times, or even buy, I mean, you can even buy like bars and stuff like that are fantastic. If you want to reduce your blood pressure different ways, so there's a few different reasons why your blood pressure might be high. Sodium is an easy one that, you know, it creates more pressure. You have more fluid in your system, more pressure. That one's the easy one. But there's also stiffening of the arteries. And one of the things that you can do is when you're not traveling, especially, is focus on eating foods that create nitric acid in your body. So foods that are that will open up and soften those blood vessels. So things like beets and your greens, of course, those dark leafy greens. I cannot emphasize dark leafy greens enough. Dark leafy greens, dark leafy greens, dark leafy greens, cooked or raw, preferably both, actually. That can be really, really helpful in softening and opening up the stiffness in your arteries. Reducing any cholesterol-filled foods, anything that has saturated fat in it, even plant foods that have saturated fat. If you have high cholesterol, you're going to be careful with even the healthy foods that contain saturated fat, because that bumps your body's production of cholesterol. And so we want to open it up, clear them out, soften them up. You know, there's multiple attacks that we can take, and reducing those things that do damage when we eat them, like animal flesh. I'm not saying give it up. You know, in the blue zones, there's only one of the 5 blue zones that is completely animal free, and that's Loma Linda, California. They've done the longest though, so just something to think about. The rest of them eat like 2 ounces of meat a month. Yeah, so a couple ounces of meat every couple of weeks is, you can keep that in, but recognize what that is. 2 ounces of meat, it doesn't mean it's healthy. It just means that your body has plenty of resources to handle those couple measly ounces of meat. So reducing those harmful components will allow your body to have less inflammation and allow it to function better, which will also reduce your blood pressure.
What about stevia or any sugars with anything?
Okay, I'm so glad you brought that up. So non-nutritive or 0-calorie or low-calorie sweeteners are something I highly recommend people avoid across the board. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, in the data, they don't show that they help with things that people think they help with, like blood sugar regulation and weight loss. They don't really help with stuff like that, because your body believes it's sugar and acts accordingly. Secondly, they tend to have weird side effects. Now, stevia, if you're buying that little cute little green plant and you're eating those leaves, more power to you. But that's not the stevia we're talking about. We're talking about that white powdered stuff, or the little squeeze bottle of liquid that looks nothing like the plant that it came from. And the problem with that is they tend to put a lot of stuff in there that's not stevia. And so one of the safest 0-calorie sweeteners, the ones that dentist recommends, that's in toothpaste, gum, and all that kind of stuff, is erythritol. Erythritol has been the safest of the not 0-calorie sweeteners for a long time. So a study just came out that says in high quantities it causes cancer. So I'm going to say what I say about sugar. I am a sweets girl. I love the sweets. I love the creamy stuff, and I love the sweets. The sweets, I use dates. I make a caramel that is so close to chewy caramel, it will literally blow your mind. I use date sugar. I use date syrup, as long as it's got fiber in it, because this is the trick when it comes to sweetening your food. It's the fiber. The fiber blunts the, even if you don't have diabetes or insulin resistance or any issues with blood sugar, if you consume something that is very, very sweet, including fruit juice, without its fiber, it goes wham into your system, and your system's like, whoa, and your brain is like, whoa, that was fun, and then it crashes. So one of the things that people struggle with is they think, oh, I have low blood sugar, for example, because they get shaky and grumpy and maybe a headache. But very often what that is withdrawal symptoms. It's withdrawal because you have spiked and there's nowhere but down after that. And it tends to come down rapidly. And so you give your brain loves glucose. That's its favorite source of energy. Glucose, glucose, glucose. But the slow release kind is so much gentler on your brain than the kind that goes wham into your system. And if you consume sugar that doesn't have any calories, what happens is your body reacts, sometimes overreacts, or sometimes reacts later. There's some differences between people, but it still impacts your insulin levels and your sugar levels. And unfortunately, it's not helping. But we still want the sweets. So what do? We get creative with that. We figure out the things that give us the most sweetness with the least impact on our health. Any of the sugars that don't have fiber in them, I really avoid like the plague. I will sometimes do a little bit of maple syrup because it doesn't have as high of a glycemic spike, but always with a fiber-filled food, always with high fiber foods, so that absorption gets blunted, it gets slowed, it gets gentled. So date sugar is fantastic. You can buy date sugar online and use it. I made chocolate chip cookies this week. So you can do that. You just use it like regular sugar. If you put it in your coffee though, it'll get a little thick. So if you're drinking with your coffee.
I can't have coffee without the sweetener. I can have tea without milk or sugar, but not my coffee.
The coffee.
My coffee
So
has to have
that
milk or almond milk and a sweetener.
That is very much something that is a common issue, and I will tell you why. So I've been telling all sorts of horrible stories today. I feel like I should apologize for that, but there's another one coming at you. So there was a study done on rodents that they use in science, and being an animal lover, it just breaks my heart telling the story every single time. But they did a study with rat food, cocaine, and sugar. Okay, so when they put rat food and cocaine in with the rats consume the cocaine. When they put rat food and sugar, they consume the sugar until they died. When they put sugar and cocaine together, they consume the sugar until they died. Their sugar, highly processed sugar, lights up the same parts of the brain that heart bugs do. I know, me personally, and not everyone is, just like not everyone is an alcoholic that's had a drink. Not everyone is a sugar addict that's had sugar. I am. I can't even have a little. or else I'm like, oh, I need the sugar, need the sugar. It's not pretty, and I actually feel bad. I'm joking, but it's not fun. So a little bit of sugar is not going to derail every single effort that you've put in. We need to pick and choose, but recognize that coffee is very, very addictive.
Oh, yeah.
Love drinking coffee, and there's some benefits to drinking coffee. Black. Unfortunately, if you put animal milk into your coffee, it negates most of its benefits. Plant milk, not so much, but animal milk for sure. And if you put sugar in your coffee, that is a potent addictive combo. Why do you think there is a Starbucks on every single block all over the world, right? So they put a lot of sugar in their coffees. Now, again, you know, if you have a cup or two of coffee with a little sugar in it, but the rest of your diet is colorful and full of whole plant foods, that's not going to make a huge impact on your health. You got to pick and choose the things that everybody can have a thing, as long as it's not heroin. I mean, you know, like it's, as long as it's not like super, super damaging, everyone's allowed to have a thing. That's my philosophy. And I have a tendency to have perfectionist qualities. And so that's something that I've learned. That is a learned behavior, not natural for me. Normally, I would want to, and I still have a little demon in my chest going, don't tell them that. But it's really about the pattern of eating, not about perfection. But you got to get in a lot more veggies. I'm sorry, a lot more. Fruit, you cannot overeat fruit as long as it's in its whole food form, not dried, not juiced. A little bit of dried is fine. I'm not saying that. But if we're talking about limiting, fruit is not something that you should limit. Occasionally, people that are insulin resistant or have been low carb for a long time, we have to introduce them or increase them slowly, but you shouldn't limit your fruit, shouldn't limit your non-starchy veggies. Eat until you're full, not stuffed, and eat mostly things that grow out of the ground, as close to the way they grew as possible. That's it. That's the whole trick. Lots of colors. Eat your rainbow.